Greetings, folks, from all across the fruited plains in America. What an exciting night it was last night. Election night, the general election 2024 for America. Celebration of our freedom, celebration of our hard fought wars, folks. That's what we fight our wars for, so we can peacefully settle our differences at the ballot box. And that's exactly what happened last night. Much to the surprise of the media, they didn't see coming what was coming, but we knew it. A lot of us here on the phone with you and on this show, and we want to share with you some of the insights of what we learned. And we just want to begin our broadcast by praising God for giving us this wonderful country where we can be the stewards of it. We are Caesar. And we've heard a lot of talk over the last month. There was a poll taken and research done that evangelical Christians, as many as 32 million, were planning not to vote. And there are organizations that really work to counter that. And so there's a lot to dive into, and we're going to do that straight away. And with me here in the studio and remote is Miss Bunni Pound. She is the president of Christians Engaged. She's also the senior vice president of church outreach and civics for Family Policy Alliance, and Michael Gear, who's a board member of the Family Policy Alliance, and he is a longtime leader of Pennsylvania Family Institute, one of our largest and most impactful family policy councils. That's the 40 state groups that we hope all of the listeners that are tuning in here are plugged in with your state group. And so it's just a privilege to have you both with us today. Thank you both.
It's great to be with you, Craig, and we're excited to talk to Michael about everything in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So let's start there, Bunny. Michael, tell us
go ahead,
what
Michael.
you saw.
Well, first, I just want to express my appreciation for the partnership we have with Family Policy Alliance and with Christians Engaged. Made a big difference here in this election cycle as people on the ground got engaged, got involved to pray, to vote, to engage. So we're excited about what happened in Pennsylvania because we had many eyeballs looking at our state. We were concerned about the experience that we had here in Pennsylvania in 2020 and even going into 2022 with late counts and all of those sorts of things. So to have the results happen within basically little 24 hours of when the polls opened in Pennsylvania was just wonderful to see. And then the results that we saw here in Pennsylvania across the board, not only in the presidential race, but the races that we at the Pennsylvania Family Institute were watching closely also came in with some very positive results. So there's a lot to be thankful for. As you said at the beginning, Craig, just the thankfulness that we get to have a voice and be engaged in our political process in this country. Many places around the world don't have that. The citizens don't have that opportunity, and we're grateful for it here in Pennsylvania, as we call the birthplace of liberty.
And it is, and you fought for it the right way at the ballot box. Tell our listeners, Bunny, I'll give you the next question, but I want to know those other victories of Pennsylvania Family Institute, because from my perspective, Michael, I believe they're connected. And I believe that there was a rich contribution through other things that were on the ballot that helped us turn out Christian voters and get social conservatives involved in this victory in Pennsylvania. Is that true?
Well, in Pennsylvania, there are no ballot questions that happened this time around. Everything was related to the candidates that were up for office, but we had a number of statewide races. We had the U.S. Senate race, obviously, that is still being contested, but the Republican Dave McCormick is in the lead to take that seat away from the longtime incumbent Bob Casey. But then we had statewide row offices that are vitally important. We see around the country the importance of who is the district or the district attorney for the state, and who that person is really makes a real difference as whether justice is done in a particular state. We look just to the north of us here in Pennsylvania, in New York State, with Letitia James, who's a very activist attorney general who seems to, you see the prosecutions she did with President Trump, for example. She ran for office saying she was going to get him. So in that case, the attorney general race was vitally important. And for the first time in quite a number of years, we have a Republican who has won that seat, Dave Sunday, who we know well, very strong on crime, very strong. Was a York County district attorney. Very strong also in opposition to legalization of marijuana, which is an upcoming fight here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So that was one of the very important races. And then we look at the social conservative issues that we have here in Pennsylvania. one race that I think is notable, and this one hasn't been called yet either, but that's the 10th congressional district race with Scott Perry, the incumbent, who's also part of the member of the Freedom Caucus, against Janelle Stelson, a longtime television anchor in this region of the state. Scott Perry was expected in many polls and other things was expected to lose that. It was one of the top targets of the Democrats to flip that House seat, that congressional seat. And yet right now, as we speak, Scott Perry is in the lead. But the key issue that Janelle Stelson, the Democrat, was running on was the abortion issue. And lots of outside the state money came in promoting abortion up until birth. She was asked a question in a debate, are there any restrictions to abortion that you would put on it? And she raised her hand and said, no, there are none. So she was an extremist on abortion. Scott has had a pro-life voting record. He didn't run away from it. And that was a bellwether, I think, to show that as conservatives and as Republicans, or those who hold to the pro-life issue, if they stick with it and can explain it, they can win. And that energizes the base to get out and vote for them.
Amen. Bunny, what's your take or your question?
Well, Craig, I just, I think nationally, I think all of us were a little surprised, to be frank. We've been going around the country for years. We started Christians Engaged, as you know, 5 years ago, really to build towards this moment in 2024. And the apathy in the movement, the apathy in the body of Christ has been real. But I think we have to give President Trump a lot of credit for building a strong coalition of people around the country. And, we picked up 3 Senate seats for everybody listening. We've got 2 that are still contested. Sam Brown in Nevada could pull out another Senate seat. I mean, that's huge. The Pennsylvania seat as well. It's a crazy time. And then, there's a strong chance that we keep the House. I think Decision Desk has put it at 58% chance that we're going to keep the House as well. But I think for our efforts, we started building in Texas 4 years ago and building a system to get Christians involved, get them to take a pledge to pray, vote, and engage, and get them into a system where we track every election in the country and we push them out to vote ongoing, not just marketing around a specific election, but getting them into something that would motivate them for the long term. So we've been all about that. And we had this crazy goal when we merged back in June to go from 250,000 Christians to 1 million. We got to 850,000 guys. All of us together, the whole Family Policy Council movement, Family Policy Alliance, Christians Engaged, all of us together did that. And then on top of that, we put some resources, thousands of dollars towards activating another 12 million emails into the battleground states, radio ads the final 3 days. So I think we've laid it all on the field. I think we really laid it all on the field to activate the Christian vote. And I think we saw a huge difference in it.
And I couldn't agree more, Bunny, with what you're saying. And Michael, I know that our most direct turnout mobilization that we worked together on with Christians Engaged and PFI there produced more than 32,000 Christians in that system. And that's a margin maker for these state legislative seats, for that, maybe that congressional seat that we're still hoping and praying for a good outcome in. But I think that one of the messages out of this is what you've already said, Michael, and I want you to revisit that the candidates down ballot did not moderate their views on social conservative issues, and they were propelled to victory in Pennsylvania, including this attorney general on his way in. He did not have to compromise and go Democratic light. He was able to run as a fully conservative candidate, and I think that is what's got the left reeling the most today.
Well, no, I think that's right. And before I go further to talk about the impact here in Pennsylvania, I just want to clarify in terms of the work of our organization here in state. We have the Pennsylvania Family Institute, which works with churches and engaging in that sort of way. And then Pennsylvania Family Council is the entity that we have that does the election type of work and mailers and all of those sorts of things that engage in that. And I just want to bring that clarity to it.
That's on me. I got that one wrong.
Well, that's okay. And it's understandable. I mean, it's how we're known, but there are those distinctions and we follow those very, very closely and key. But one of the things that I want to mention related to this election, because as we sit here looking at the results and the vote that happened, one of the things that I appreciate about Christians Engaged challenge to the pledge to pray, vote, and engage is that people are, who like the results of this election that just happened, can't go back and sit on their laurels and think, okay, we're done. All of these people who were elected now are going to be facing challenges from whether it's, as they call the mainstream media, or the other side that's not going to just say, oh, I guess the people have spoken, we're going to stop our fight. And so we have school board elections coming next year. We have so many different things happening here in Pennsylvania, as well as just the engagement. We saw how much work it took here in Pennsylvania to get the results that we wanted. There were people that were working, doing voter registration, going to churches, doing things like, what we had with the church engagement and our voters guide and all of those sorts of things. But citizenship doesn't end on election day or the day after election day. It continues forward. And we look forward to partnering both with Family Policy Alliance, Christians Engaged, and with our constituents here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to continue the work, to get good policies passed. We don't elect people just to say, we won, but we want to see good policies passed. We want to see families flourish. We want to see religious liberty flourish as well in this state. And those are the kinds of ongoing efforts that partnering with Christians Engaged, with Family Policy Alliance, and here in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Family Institute, will make a vital difference in the days going forward.
Well, and Michael, I want to say too, I think at the end of the day, we can all give God great glory, and it's the prayers of the saints. I've never seen prayer rise from the country like we saw the last few months. And I think that is true for every state. So, pray, vote, and engage. Prayer is actually number one.
That's right.
We accomplished the good report of voting and getting people out, and we have much more work to do. And now it's, to raise up a bench of leadership in our states in the future. And thank you for all your incredible work.
Well, thank you. And our colleague, my colleague in Maine, the Maine Family Policy Council, called the I forget the name of it suddenly, but anyway, Carol posted a thing. He woke up yesterday morning on election day with a thought in his head that I think, is inspired. And it said, don't confuse what you hope for with who you hope in. And that's exactly right. As we enter election day, or even the days that follow, our hope is in Christ. Our hope is in God. And that doesn't mean we don't work and we don't engage. But we also need to pray, as you just said, because that's where our hope lies.
Amen.
And folks, we have that opportunity now in America. We have a bit of a stay for some of these radical policies being forced down our throats as parents. It's infected our school districts. It's on every advertisement on television. It's accepted in corporate boardrooms as the new reality, all against. We're seeing the horrifying fruition of this type of behavior when we see the arrests of people like Diddy and other people, and it leaves us as Christian conservatives scratching our heads and saying, what do you think is going to happen if you teach this perversity with people growing up? That it's going to have bad results, and we now have a president who said he's going to intervene with that on day one, and we'd like him to intervene on more issues than just the radical trans ideology, but we have a platform now. And I just want to reemphasize, Michael, I know you've got to go. One last time, what you said, this is from Pennsylvania. It's been the epicenter of this for 3 election cycles in a row, and we've won 2 of those. Folks, we have the opportunity to build on this. If you like the results of this, we now know it started right away. As soon as the ballots closed, Michael, if you're like me, they started saying, what do we have here? The Christians, the Republicans are all voting absentee, and they're voting as much as the Democrats. I want in 2 years them to say that we're outpacing them 2 or 3 to 1 because we're mailing our ballots in or dropping them off, voting in person if you don't trust the mail system, and closing out our ballots 100% folks. We got to start that, as Michael said, at the local level, work out to the counties, up through the state, and eventually to the federal government. Isn't that the plan, Michael? This is just the beginning of what we hope is a revival in America of strong social conservative leadership.
Well, I think it is, and there's so many issues that were under the radar for talking about the mainstream media that here in the postmortem, as it were, watching folks like Joe Scarborough or Harold Ford, who is an analyst there on Fox, both a couple of Democrats, who specifically talked this morning about how the Democrats were ignoring how moms and dads feel about girls' sports and about boys in the girls' restrooms and those sorts of issues. And I think it was Harold Ford saying, that polls at 85%. We're the organization in Pennsylvania that has taken the lead. We've gotten school district after school district to pass girls' sports policies. We actually passed one at the state level, only to have it vetoed by the previous governor, Tom Wolf. But we'll be back, because these are the important issues that really impact families. And the life issue is one, again, with the races that we've seen and the victories we had in Florida, North or South Dakota, and Nebraska, wonderful victories on the life issue, turning the tide, post Dobbs, that I think can be things we build upon as we work, pray, and vote and engage.
Well, Michael, I know you've got to go, so thank you so much. Thank you. We so appreciate you, and keep up the good work, brother.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
And we've got Kathy Herod from the Center of Arizona Policy. Arizona is a very, very important state. And as we bring Kathy on here, and I know Craig will want to give her a proper introduction, but I wanted to just say, in the state of Texas, we saw Senator Ted Cruz win a race, a 9-point gap in a race that was polled that he might lose. And the advertising going on in that race was hitting Senator Cruz for being for the sanctity of human life, and hitting him on multiple transgender issues. And he hit back on the Democrats on the issues that we care about, which is girls, men in girls' locker rooms, and saving women's sports, and all of the things that we talk about here at Family Policy Alliance. So I think it was an incredible victory for the social conservative movement, that you don't have to compromise your biblical values. You don't have to sit back and not be courageous. And as Senator Cruz's father, Raphael, serves on our advisory board for Christians Engaged, you can be bold as a lion and stand up for the Bible and get reelected at a huge margin. So anyway, I will turn it over to Craig to
well, amen. And that's a
Kathy.
great transition, because talk about bold as a lion. We have a lion on the show right now, and Kathy Herod. She's been called everything from the 39th senator, if I got the vote count right, to all sorts of things in Arizona. Immensely effective and a powerful servant for the Lord. And Arizona's been tough sledding these last couple election cycles. Kathy, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks for including me. Glad to be on.
So tell the viewers. Everybody wants to know what happened from the ground there in Arizona.
Well, of course, Arizona is one of the targeted states. As of this morning, we still had 1 million votes to be counted. We expect a 75 to 80% total voter turnout, and probably 75% of that will be early ballots. So when people say, why does it take so long to count votes in Arizona? It's because of all the votes that still have to be counted. So on the presidential election, President Trump has won handily. In my view, it's ahead. I'm looking at it's 52 to 47% right now. That will hold. Carrie Lake in the U.S. Senate race is only behind by 60,000 votes right now, but I don't think she'll be able to catch up. She'll probably lose by within 1% is what it looks like right now, but anything could happen. The good news in Arizona is that we have not flipped from red to blue or even to purple. Our state house has gained a seat. We'll have a 32-28 Republican majority. And of course, when I say Republican, I'm trying to say it's pro-life versus not pro-life. Our state Senate right now, we're possibly could be tied, but I think we'll end up with a 16-14 or 17-13 because of where the votes are and remain to be counted. So that's all the good news. The heartbreaking loss is, of course, our Prop 139, our abortion measure. That Arizona and our state constitution will now be unrestricted, unregulated abortion, and we'll be unpacking a lot. There are a lot of reasons for the loss. One of them, of course, being outspent 35 million to about 2 million. We had 2 million. We had the most massive grassroots effort I've ever seen in my state. And I think that's the encouragement for the future, that we have built a pro-life activist base that we didn't have quite the same before. We also have a very engaged pastor base. We had over 750 evangelical pastors sign a Sanctity of Human Life Declaration and urge the no vote. We've had pastors who would have been reluctant to speak out on the issue now, who are committed in their hearts to really speak out. But this may not be true in other states, but I will tell you, not unlike Ohio, the Trump voter is our problem. The Trump voter is not pro-life to the extent that many may think the Trump voter is. We don't know the numbers yet, but we knew we would probably lose 20%, maybe 30% of the Trump vote. But I will tell you, in 2 counties that are very conservative, where Trump, is going to win easily, we're almost tied. And so we have a lot of Trump voters that voted yes for abortion. And so whether that's that the Republican Party is not as many faithful religious, people of faith, churchgoers, or whether it's just where the Trump realignment is going, or what's happened with the National Party. But we have some significant work to do on the cultural end on abortion. There's no question.
Now, let me try something with you here with exactly what you're talking about. And I'm from Michigan, and we suffered through this. I'm a former Speaker of the House, and it wasn't that long ago when I was Speaker. We had 20 of the 52 members of the Democratic caucus completely pro-life, without exceptions, because they believe properly that it's a human being. That was very commonly understood in the Black and Hispanic communities that at the time were voting Democratic. And my theory is, and I'm seeing exactly what you're talking about, Kathy, but what Trump did was he pulled out the pro-life voters in America that showed up in different areas, but all of the people that voted for him were not pro-life. But what we're suffering from is that the cause of abortion, the cause of these unborn human beings, was not supposed to be a political issue. It's a moral issue. And we've allowed our parties to separate us in saying if you vote Democratic, you vote pro-choice, and if you vote Republican, you vote pro-life. And as you're saying that Donald Trump is attracting people that are pro-choice, well, I have to believe, actually, to me, abortion is a justice issue, not a healthcare issue. And when the left has the scales removed from their eyes and their ears, it's a moral issue, that it's a justice issue, the same as over sentencing people or putting them in front of a trial without a lawyer. That's where we gain our ground, and that's where we get our footing back. I don't believe for a second that this issue is settled. I believe that this is the growing pains on the arc of justice that Martin Luther King talked about. It bends toward justice, but man, it's uncomfortable, some of the contortions that we have right now. Do we have hope, or am I being too optimistic here?
Well, no, I think we're in an incremental phase in a number of our states. Just like we had the 50 years of an incremental approach to overturn Roe, we're in another type of incremental phase to where we have to chip away at it in some of our states. I also think even when you look at the Florida vote, when you think of the money that was spent in Florida on the no side, and they still had a 57% yes vote, that just shows some of the problem. But let me say, here in Arizona, I don't know the millions of dollars that were in pro-abortion ads, going after President Trump, going after Carrie Lake, going after Congressman Schweikert. I mean, it was unbelievable. Every time you turned around, it was on abortion. On the abortion measure, on Prop 139, you had 2 female OBGYNs flat out lying in the TV ads on the miscarriage issue. And you had a media, the other story to this election is going to be the media and the losses that the media should experience. The media never challenged the pro-abortion side on their lies. But then when you look at our congressional and our legislative races, and even we had 2 Supreme Court justices up, and abortion did not factor into those races. I mean, none of those people that are pro-life for congressional races or state legislative races are 2 Supreme Court justices who upheld our pre-Roe pro-life law. They won with 56% of the vote. So, abortion being used by the Democrats to try to take over our elected seats, that they failed in that. So they could pour their money into the Prop 139, but they could not pull off the wins. And so we'll still come out with a fairly conservative pro-family legislature. And in Arizona, I've said for a long time, our 2026 elections started today, because we'll be electing a governor, and that's the critical thing here, is everyone has to get on board. And I think from the pro-life perspective, the Republicans that were silent and did not help and did not speak out on this issue, we're going to remember that. We have long memories.
And folks, this is just like we talked with Michael Gear. This is just the beginning, Bunny. I'm going to come to you on this because this is amazing. I hope you guys heard what Kathy Herod, the president of the Center for Arizona Policy, a longtime leader in the pro-life movement, said. Nobody that ran stridently pro-life lost. They won by a greater margin than President Trump. That was true in 2022 as well. Every governor, you have Governor Kemp, ran completely pro-life. He won without a runoff. Herschel Walker tried to hedge. He lost in the general. He lost in the runoff. Governor Stitt in Oklahoma, again, stridently broke through every barrier. And folks, that's what I'd like to think Donald Trump taught us in 2016, is you don't compromise your values. You fight, fight, fight. Well, we shouldn't be hedging here. And the voters rewarded every pro-life candidate. I know in Michigan, we flipped a seat in the suburbs. That it was Alyssa Slotkin's seat with someone who was completely pro-life. And that was a Democratic seat, and he did not compromise his values, and he cut right through that electorate, and he's going to Congress because of it. And Bunny, isn't that what the idea is with Christians Engaged, that what we need to do is train up and meet Christians where they are, that 32 million, that 37% of us that don't vote, and when you get to a municipal election, it's like 85% of us that don't vote. Isn't that what this is the beginning of, like Kathy's talking about, so we can be ready for 2026 and make Arizona not even a contest, right?
Well, that's why the unity in the social conservative movement that we're seeing right now is so incredible. And to piggyback on what Kathy just said, no one's being denied miscarriage care. It's an utter lie. It's fabrications by the left to try to stir this issue up, and it's fear mongering, right? And so what the family policy councils are doing, and Kathy, thank you so much for just being on the front lines of this, is combating those lies and bringing the truth, right? And we need a bench of leadership on the front lines of these battles. And Christians are sitting in their pews, feeling good about their lives, singing their hallelujahs, right? And not getting in the war. And so we're trying with Christians Engaged is to get them to make a commitment. Will you start praying for your government, your elected officials, America, at least 5 minutes a week? Will you start voting in every election? And will you start engaging? And let's get you in some basic civic engagement, understanding, and then raise you up. For clarity, though, I think we all need to celebrate for a second that we did see 3 pro-life wins on these abortion initiatives, right? In Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota.
Right.
And that's the first time that we've ever had that nationally. So as a movement, we need to be celebrating that. But, this is the thing. Hope is alive. And what we saw, yes, we didn't get everything we wanted, right? We're not running to the finish line going, woohoo, we won everything. But we are starting something in this moment. And I think the seeds that Doc Dobson planted 25 years ago to build a movement of Christians that were connected at a heart level and an alliance level to activate the church, we're just getting started. And that's what's exciting. And all of it comes together.
It's exciting. And that's why, to think that we had 760 evangelical pastors publicly declare a pro-life position. That and some of them were pastors in churches that you would be surprised, in many ways, as far as where they're located and all of that. But the other part, in addition to what is going on with Christians Engaged, that we just need to start talking a little bit more about. We have believers sitting in our pews who have financial capacity, who do not understand the need to give money to campaigns. And so, we made a lot of calls to raise money. We did a lot to try to raise money here. And there's, whether it's the tax deduction issue, whether it's not wanting to be disclosed publicly, that type of thing. But that's just that I will be talking more and more about that as well. That because I had hopes that we could reach people that are sitting in the pews that have capacity, aren't being hurt by any economic challenge. And either they didn't want, for whatever reasons, I won't speculate on the reasons, but the giving was not there. And so that's, I hope to see that in the future as well. And, I've been through a marriage amendment loss and a marriage amendment victory. And so I know that a loss is also what then produces significant harvest in the future. And so I'm optimistic about that we have something to build on. My guess is we will try to put a pro-life measure on the ballot in 26. And so, we will chip away at this thing. We will not just roll over and play dead. That's not in my nature, certainly. And not, there's still babies out there to be protected in Arizona. And so we will be, I'm sure we'll be talking about what can we do on the ballot in 26.
Amen.
Well, Kathy, I'll turn it over to Craig here to close this out. But I want to say thank you. And this is so critical as being a candidate that was on the front lines. As a Christian, we have to support our brothers and sisters that are out there on the front lines, that are putting their life on the line and risking all to follow Jesus into the place of elected office. And only 1% of Americans actually give to campaigns. And the left, it's like their offering, it's their tithe, right? They're putting all their money into politics, and we're not engaging at all. So that is a huge challenge for us today, to just get more involved and more engaged and to adopt candidates in our communities. Craig?
Before you go, Kathy, I want you to say what you estimate. Now, it's hard because there's dark money on both sides. I'm not judging dark money here. That's a different show. But roughly how much was the spending gap in Arizona between the people that want to kill human beings before they're born and those that want to protect their life and their constitutional rights? 35 million to 2 million. Folks.
And let me, and this was the first year that we have donor disclosure required. And so, but the unions are exempted. So the two biggest donors to the yes on abortion side were two unions and Planned Parenthood. They were the top three donors. So they don't have to disclose anything, but we would have to disclose our donors with a big dollar. So yes, I think when you mentioned the three states that won, that's what if you want to use the term, the national funders, or the people that have, we can win these things, but it is going to take money. It doesn't, you can say it doesn't, you don't have to have money to tell the truth, but you have to have money to get the truth out there. So we just couldn't counter the lies. But again, we're alive and well. We know what it's like to persevere on the life issue. We congratulate our colleagues in other states. We have a pro-life majority in our legislature still. So we've got a lot to build on from here. And being a targeted state, we're going to get used to it.
Well, what I want the other side to get used to is that this is an awakening. This is just the beginning. Yes. This is not a one-off election or a repeat of 2016. I said one skirmish. This is us digging our feet in, getting traction as a movement. The social conservatives have recognized that both of our party leaders ran against us this year. We're not idiots. We noticed that, but we dug in anyway, and we persuaded one side to adopt a number of our issues enough to motivate our base. The other side made it very clear what their intentions were. This is not the group of people of Bill Clinton's era that said abortion should be rare, and every one of them is a tragedy. Yeah. These are people that when the unions are laundering money for the Mackenzie Bezos of the world to get people to shut up and get back on the line, rather than enter into the love of a family and with their marriage and have their own children, incentivizing them for $4,000. Can you imagine, folks? That's like telling we read books about that and to say that that's what happened in the cotton fields, and things like that, and that's what the big industry leaders in America that are pouring all this money in, and the reason why, and this is why I think that Kamala Harris took the biggest hit. If there's anything, I think God is probably, I can't speak for God, please. I'm not trying to do that. But from when I read the Bible, the most offensive thing in this entire election was the idea that you can give government the power over life itself to, whether it's AOC or Ron DeSantis, take your pick, to decide whether you live or die for economic purposes and call that freedom. That is as dumb as the original equation of the apple. And I think that Americans didn't fall for that. They know that that's not freedom, that's slavery. And that Thomas Jefferson and the leaders that said our rights come from God, not from the hand of government, that's what was on the ballot. And that's what we're going to be fighting for in the halls of Congress. And as we rebuild in Arizona, I want to say one last word of hope for you. Everybody listening, we got to help the states like Arizona. The difference is, in all three of the states where we were successful, we had a governor, we had an attorney general, and that is what makes the difference, whether or not these even get on the ballot, and if they get on the ballot, what the words say, and how the money gets raised, and how the votes get counted, and all the rest of it. So please, as you hear about Arizona, as you hear about Pennsylvania, as you hear about all 40 of the states we're organizing in, and the 10 other states that need family policy councils, we need you to raise your hand. It's not just your money. We need your time and your talent as well. We need you to join our family policy councils. Kathy is one of our most prominent leaders of that. So is Michael. There are 40 wonderful state organizations. These are the front lines. We do not believe the answers will come from anyone in the White House. In fact, we would prefer a much reduced power in America, because a president that's powerful enough to take out weird stuff out of kids' books in the schools means that a president is powerful enough to put it into those books. And we need to take control of our governments everywhere where we live. And if you're looking for a group to do that with, you start with the Center for Arizona Policy. You start with your local family policy council. The links will be here. And you start mobilizing for the future, because the most important government for you is not the presidency. It's your school board, and it's your city or your village or your township, and let's start there together. Kathy, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day. Thanks.
Yep. Blessings all. And Bunny, any final words before we head out here?
Yeah, Craig, I would love to share two stories as we think about the next season. We've been praying. Everybody's been praying. We continue to pray. We voted. And now we're going to continue to vote even next year in our local elections. And we really need to get into a posture today. The work begins, as Michael and Kathy both said. The work begins today for the next election cycle, and to see the body of Christ raised up. So, two victory stories I want to share as we end. Number one, we had a young woman that got involved in Arkansas in the State Family Policy Council there. She interned there and went to DC with us with Christians Engaged. We took her on a full scholarship for a 3-day trip of prayer, voting, and engagement in the DC Capitol. And she came home, went back to Arkansas. She's a Assembly of God pastor's child, been in ministry for 6 or 7 years. She went and interviewed the guy that was going to run for state representative in her district, and she discovered that he did not have a biblical worldview. And so she decided to take him on. And she had 2.5 months to make it happen in a primary. A guy who had been in county government for 3 decades. She knocked 3,000 doors, raised $50,000, got Mike Huckabee's endorsement, and beat him with 63% in the Arkansas primary. And last night, she became the youngest woman ever elected in Arkansas state history at the age of 27. That's the work of the Family Policy Councils and Christians Engaged together, mobilizing young people to put their lives on the line and to stand up and be the people that God's called them to be. The last story I want to share, Craig, is when we first started Christians Engaged 5 years ago, we had a man in Dallas, Texas, that was very upset that we didn't have constitutional conservatives running for judges, in a very blue county. And so he joined Christians Engaged to help me raise up people to run for office, went on our board of directors. And a year later, him and his wife, Jordan and Jessica Lewis, put themselves on the line as two attorneys in Dallas County to run in a county where they knew they couldn't win as judges. Well, their name ID increased. They got great notoriety, engaging Christians, even in what looked like a losing race. And then Jessica Lewis, after 2 losses, was recruited to run for the Court of Appeals here, the 5th District Court of Appeals, that the Republicans lost in 2018. They just took back the 5th Court of Appeals, and Jessica Lewis is now going to be on the Court of Appeals for 5 counties here in Texas. One couple saying yes to Jesus, to be obedient to God, to step in, and a mom of 3, maybe even 4. I think she might have one on the way too. But just to say yes, to see leadership being raised up. That is what we're doing here, folks. This is a long-term play. The left has been incredible at mobilizing and registering voters through nonprofits. We have been horrific on our side of the conservative aisle, and that's where we're going to change everything with Christians Engaged in Family Policy Alliance across the country in the years ahead. So that was my final hope-filled stories, Craig, and thank you for your leadership to see this all come together. It's just been an incredible season for all of us.
It has been, and I wish my old mentor, Chuck Colson, was alive to see this growth and this birth of this wonderful thing we have with Christians Engaged in Family Policy Alliance. But it's because of you, as you're watching this today. You're the one that put us on the field to do this. And I just want to recap a couple of those numbers, and we'll send you out here. 12 million emails in the swing states, folks. Every swing state broke the right way. Those were all pro-life candidates on the congressional seats, in the state house races, in the U.S. Senate races that we won. Over 850,000 Christians identified and put into this system where they're going to vote 4 times every 1 year instead of 1 time every 4 years. A massive mobilization in Texas, South Texas, and with Ted Cruz. The election successes in Nebraska, South Dakota, and in Florida, folks. You did that because you gave us freely your time, your talent, or your treasure, and we're humbled and honored to be the stewards of that, and we pray that we're serving you well and helping you be the hands and feet in Jesus in your community and in your contribution with your votes to our great nation. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you very